We're waiting to go live. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in to our show. We are South Sudan Women Intellectuals Forum. Today, we are honored to have as our guest for the special edition program, Honorable Dr. Barnaba Marial Benjamin. And we would be discussing on post-conflict governance, diplomacy, and international relations. This is our topic of discussion for this evening. However, before we go on to our topic of discussion, I think it would be appropriate for me to give a brief biography on our guest for today, and that is Honorable Dr. Barnaba Marial Benjamin. He was the former presidential advisor and special envoy to the President of South Sudan. He served as the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in the former Ministry of Regional Cooperation. He was the former Minister of Information and the official spokesman of the government of Southern Sudan and South Sudan also. He served as the Minister of Commerce and Industry, and during the CPA, he was the former State Minister of International Cooperation in the government of National Unity in Khartoum. And currently, Honorable Barnaba Marial Benjamin is the Deputy Head of the Government Delegation for the Rome Peace Talks with non-signatories of the peace agreement. He is also a member of the National Liberation Council. Honorable Dr. Barnaba Marial Benjamin, you are most welcome to our show this evening.
I am extremely delighted to be a part of this discussion, which is led by South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum. I think it is a great gender forum led by our women, and for one to be a part of it, indeed, I'm greatly honored to be a part of that process.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now we go straight into our questions. I believe South Sudan Women Intellectuals Forum speak not only on behalf of South Sudan women, but on behalf of all South Sudanese, men, women, and children. There are lots of issues that are currently going on in our country, and our interest, as we have mentioned, this evening is on issues on the resolution of conflict, diplomacy, foreign relations, and others. So my first question is that we would soon be celebrating the first anniversary of the signing of the revitalized peace agreement in South Sudan. And as we celebrated, because it was signed on the 22nd of February 2020, we have a lot of concerns as South Sudanese. The parties to the agreement have been very slow and have failed to implement a lot of the clauses that were supposed to be that were supposed to be implemented, pardon me. The agreed milestones have not been met, and many clauses that are set in the agreement have been violated. My question is, what is your take to the pace at which the RARCSS is being implemented? Over to you.
Well, yes, thank you so much, Madam Angeth, for your questions. Absolutely. I wouldn't differ much, but maybe the interpretation of why the peace process has been terribly slow in implementing some of the most important items within the agreement. I think it is an oversimplification to say that the parties have failed in not implementing the agreement. Not at all. I think what has happened is that some implementation has been done by all means. There is no question about that. But that the process is slow, I agree with you there. And you know, for an agreement like revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in the Republic of South Sudan, it's an intricate agreement. It is a detailed agreement that was negotiated by a large number of opposition parties and the government, including international partners like IGAD, the African Union, United Nations, and individual countries like Troika who have been there, and some friendly countries like China, like Japan, name it, all these countries. So the process, of course, is intricate. It is, as they always say, that the devil is in the details. When you come to implement a peace process, you will always find a lot of difficulties. So we are proceeding. All I can do is to encourage the South Sudanese Women Forum that please follow it well, but be patient along with it, because the process is going on. It is slow, but it will in the end achieve what we all want to see, and that is peace for the people of South Sudan. Because our people have suffered so much throughout history. You're not talking now on it, you are going back to 1820s, the Turco-Egyptian invasion, the time of General Charles Gordon coming in to stop slavery, the 1898 of Kitchener, taking over fully to have the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, and then the so-called Sudanese independence of 1956, which broke out before independence into a war, up to the present coming to a Addis Ababa peace agreement, and on to 1983 SPLM-SPLA war as we are today. And here we are. We got our country. I think it is a great victory. You cannot ignore it. We should be very proud of our heroes and heroines wherever they are. And as I was telling you much earlier, I was a student of your dad, by the way. Your father used to teach me geography. And for your information, I scored the highest marks in geography for the whole of South Sudan and interim. My mark was the top number of that. So really, and they used to tell us, I still remember in our class, in our geography class, he said, you know, you boys, you have to study hard. You have to work hard, get educated, because this problem of South Sudan will not finish with us. It will even come to you, and who knows, your children too. So I'm not surprised here to be sitting behind where I'm seeing the daughter of the doomed actually questioning and how far this peace process is going on. So I can still share with you that yes, it is slow but optimistic. We will reach the end of the day. While we are talking, implementing what you call the RRCs now, we are having other peace processes going, like the Rome peace process, in order to bring in anybody who is still outside, because outside there are hundreds of our citizens who are still complaining and who think that they are waging a struggle and therefore fighting the government and all that sort of thing. But to us as a government, as encouraged by President Salva Kiir Mayardit, we should never tire to bring the rest of our people on board so that we achieve a total peace for our country. I can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I cannot hear you. What did you say?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for your very elaborate response to my question. Patience is something that we seem to possess in abundance as South Sudanese. We've been patient for years of war, and we continue to be patient as we wait for the implementation of the latest peace agreement. However, the suffering of our people is what is really driving us to question the parties to the agreement, why they cannot keep up to what they signed or what they put ink on paper for. The 16 parties, when they signed the agreement, we believe that they were committing themselves to clauses that they understood fully, and that the implementation would flow accordingly as per the timelines they signed for. So would it be wrong for us to say that the parties are reneging on what they had initially signed? Also, would it be wrong to say that the grants who are supposed to ensure that the agreement is implemented in word and spirit by all the parties, and by the grantors, I mean IGAD, the AU, and the other parties who have been witnesses to this process, would it be wrong to say that they have been ineffective in playing their part? Over to you.
No, I don't think it is wrong for you to give that suggestion, by all means. But it is also fair to say that the guarantors are working. They haven't thrown up their hands into the air and left. Not at all. They are continuously reminding the signatories that you have signed this document and that you are supposed to implement it in spirit and in letter. And like all agreements, like all the agreements, they always say that the enemy is in the details, actually. The difficulties are usually enshrined when it comes to the point of implementing. You will always differ in how you interpret, for example, a security arrangement, what it would mean, or economic plans that you, or financial management strategy that you have agreed upon. There are always those differences of implementation. So I must say that the grantors are there, and I see them every day. I talk to them every day. They are there. They are trying their best, but we are also urging them that while you are dealing with the problem of the Republic of South Sudan, you must look over your shoulders to the other conflicts in the world today. Anything which is signed by more than one person, even by two partners, takes time. I was giving an example of how the wonderful Lady Chancellor of Germany was trying to get the colleague political party to share, and for them to form a government. You'll be surprised. It took them nearly 5-6 months. They couldn't reach an agreement, just two parties. What about 28 of ours? And yet, how soon would they all agree to be? You have the case of Israel. I always give an example. There are only two parties in Israel, the one led by Benjamin Netanyahu and others. Now they are going to 3 years. Took them 3 years to try and even just set up a government. And there are only two parties. In the way in which they interpret things. You come to us, 28. You people think that we should reach an agreement, boom, 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 in that way. No, I don't think so. Let's be realistic with politics. Politics is not easy. It is an argument of ideas that each politician believes his solutions are the best than the other opponent. And therefore, it takes time when they reach a consensus and come to an agreement. I must say, in fact, some of our opposition parties are good today, like SPLM-IO, like SOAS, for example, like Democratic Movement of Lama Call, and many others. You know, you have seen how it took us very long to implement, to have in our United States. But if we didn't have all the patience, let us argue it out and find a proper solution. And today, we have got 10 of our governors have been there. We have been having 9 for a long time. But if we had thrown up our hands and exchanged blows, where would we be now? Another fights and all that. So let's say we have an experience with the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, a wonderful agreement that we signed with Omar al-Bashir. Omar is gone now, and there are some parts of that agreement we have not implemented. You have a BI, still until today, we have not implemented as we have agreed. We have Southern Blue Nile, we have the Nuba Mountains, we haven't agreed. And we negotiated this in 2005. How many years are that? You see, so any agreement has delays. All we need to do, and what I would really advise the South Sudanese Women Forum to do, is to continue knocking, complaining and saying, but you people are not moving fast, so that you can push the process, especially with guarantors. You have got Troika, UK, United States, and Norway, for example. You have got the role of African Union. You have got the role of IGAD. You have got the role of the United Nations itself. You have seen United Nations has been here since 2011. They have been here in the Republic of South Sudan. I must remind you, the United Nations has been in the DRC since 1960. They haven't moved out. Have they solved the problems there? No. So while we are solving our problem, let us look over our shoulders and see what we can do ourselves. That's why I always say that the solution is with us. It's between us. It is with Anit, it is with Barnaba, it is with Asha, it is with all of us. That we exert our efforts, all of us, urge the grantors that if they are not doing their work as they should do, because there are certain things they should do. And yes, for example, we have got the cantonment sites. When you come to security issues, cantonment sites, they need a lot of logistical support. They need proper housing setup, good tents, you know, enough food for them to eat, the training process. These are things that the government of South Sudan cannot do alone. We will need the guarantors to come in. And here sometimes they are not coming in as quickly as possible. They will try and blame the government here and there, but what are they doing? Yes, they have certain things in which they can be blamed in as far as their contribution to the process is concerned. But it is not saying that they are not doing their best. I believe honestly that they do their best. That is one example I've given you on the security arrangement. Because you hear people every day, oh, security arrangement is not going. No, it is going. Yeah, we have, for example, when we were talking with the non-signatories, Thomas Cirillo, Paul Malong, and Pagana Mum, all these old senior members of the SPLM, you see, they think certain things are not going well. And the agreement we have signed with the SOMA, South Sudan Opposition Movement Alliance, with regards to Rome Declaration and Rome Resolution, underscores the fact of peace. That is, they are committed, like RRCs is committed to the cessation of hostilities of 2017. Now, we are working with Thomas Cirillo. We are telling him, now we need your generals. The issue you raised in your question, that there is violations and the process. Now, what you hear every day is violation and counter violations and counter accusations on the violation of the ceasefire, for example. And then we are telling them, for you to be a part of the CTSAM VM, they have to identify their generals and join the process of CTSAM so that they become part of monitors and verification. They should be involved. They should be eyewitnesses and identify who are these violating the agreement as we go along. These are some of the things that need to be done. That's why the president has delegated us to continue talking to these other comrades who are non-signatories to agreement. You have what can you say about the peace agreement, the security arrangement, for example? The security arrangement in the RRCs was negotiated under the chair of Thomas Cirillo himself, a very good general, I must say. I know him, a friend of mine, but he's a wonderful general. He negotiated that. And when he was asked, before the political parties signed the security arrangement, he told them, no, this is an excellent agreement. Please go ahead, 95% excellent. But where is he now? He's still in opposition, fighting in the bushes of Western Equatoria. So you see, these are contradictions we meet as we go all along. And therefore, we should not tire. We should not run short of brains. And that's where your diplomacy, tact, and international relations comes in. How you explain to others your problems and how they respond to you and how you can convince them to assist in what you want to do for your country. Because at the end of the day, whether it is Anged or Barnaba, at the end of the day, it is the interests of our country that concerns you and me, or Aisha. Yeah? What concerns us is the interests of our country, not what others are saying. So we must concentrate our effort in trying to persuade partners, guarantors, international friends, and everybody else, civil society organizations, church organizations, you name it, so that they can understand the intricate issue of the problem of the Republic of South Sudan. And once we win more friends to assist us in what we are doing, then we will be able to achieve what we are dreaming of every day. And that is peace for the first time to our people. I'm not hearing you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Thank you very much. Just to go back, you did speak briefly on the current Rome Peace Agreement, the talks that are going. We can't call it an agreement as yet because it's a mediation. It's still at the mediation stage. These talks have not received a lot of attention. It seems to be a side negotiation that is going on. And it worries us when we see very important members of the previous government, like General Pagan, General Malong, and General Thomas, missing from the current peace agreement, the revitalized peace agreement. So my question is, as the deputy chief negotiator on the government side, can you update us on how far you have gone with this process and how soon we can expect to see these efforts bear fruit? Because as South Sudanese, our concern is to have everyone on board and in government with no non-signatories being left out.
Yes, indeed. And I think it is important, Madam Agnes, for us to realize that the government, in the personality of the President of the Republic, President Salva Kiir Mayardit, insisted we must bring these other comrades outside on board so that the peace process become complete. You remember His Holiness Pope Francis, together with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Wellerby, and the Moderator General of the Presbyterian Church of Scotland, these three religious leaders called for a retreat at the Vatican, led by Pope himself, and invited President Salva, Dr. Riek, and Madame Nyandeng, and many other political leaders, including our church leadership in the Republic of South Sudan, civil society organization, to visit Vatican and have a retreat in order to talk about the issue of bringing peace to the people of South Sudan. And in that retreat, the whole world was mesmerized completely, especially when for the first time in the history of church, in the history of Catholic Church, since we divided up 600 years ago, when we broke away from the Catholic Church, for the first time for Pope to sit together side by side with the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Moderator General of Presbyterian Church, talking about what? Talking about bringing peace to South Sudan. It actually united the church that had broken up. It brought them together, the issue of South Sudan. So you can see the love people have for our people, the love Pope himself has for the people of South Sudan. And he went extra mile. He kissed the feet of our political leadership. President Salva, Dr. Riek, Madame Nyandeng, kissed their feet, saying, reconcile, forgive one another, bring peace to your people. Your people are suffering. That's what kicked off the Rome peace process, that gesture, which actually spread like wildfire throughout the whole world. And in that process, San Egidio, as you know, is a community of Catholics throughout the world. In 70 countries of the world, they have got San Egidio. 70 countries of this world, in Latin America, Europe, Africa, Australia, Asia, and Europe as a whole. So, and this San Egidio has negotiated nearly 18 conflicts in the whole world, and they succeeded to bring peace. That's why the Pope and the church leadership with the Archbishop of Canterbury and everybody thought that San Egidio can help the people of South Sudan to reach an agreement. And that's why San Egidio took it up. And San Egidio negotiated issues of Mozambique, the Renamo, the issue of Angola, the MPLA and UNITA, the issue of Sierra Leone, the issue of Cote d'Ivoire, the issue of Kosovo, the issue of Nicaragua in Latin America, the issue of Philippines in Asia. So San Egidio is a renowned church of organization that is committed to bringing peace among communities throughout the world. So they took up this process. And that process in January 2020, I was nominated by President Salva to lead the first delegation to Rome. And we met the South Sudan Opposition Movement Alliance, led by a leadership council at that time. The leadership council consisted of Pagana Amum, Thomas Cirillo, and Paul Malone. And we negotiated with them. And within 3 days, we had our first agreement, a great victory. We had what we call the Rome Declaration. The Rome Declaration specifically was saying that they are committed to the cessation of hostilities of 2017, which was signed in 2017, which was a great milestone. And that they are committed to see that the relief food must reach all our suffering people throughout the South Sudan. And that we must find a peaceful solution. And that it must be an inclusive solution. I think these were great agreements. That's what Rome Declaration is. Now, when we returned in February, I was still leading that delegation. We agreed in what we call the Rome Resolution. The Rome Resolution was scoring the fact that the members of SOMA, that is the generals, must become a part of the CTSAM within the RRCs, the agreement of the resolution of the Republic of South Sudan. That was what we had agreed in the Rome Resolution. So there was a movement towards that. But suddenly COVID-19 came and we could not continue with our talks until late in October, when another delegation was worked out, when Comrade Nial then joined us as the head of the delegation, and we continued meeting them. And we had been scoring milestone and milestone, understanding in an environment of understanding that, look, the country belongs to all of us, Angel. Whether you are in the government or whether you are outside the government. This country belongs to South Sudanese. And they should realize that. And that any step any citizen takes about his country must know that she or he is talking about his or her own country, not somebody's country run by somebody else. And that is the spirit we do. And this is what we call the national interest. The national interest of the people of South Sudan is peace for our people. You have seen the suffering of our people. We need development. We need schools. We need health care. We need food security. We need all. And nobody, unless from outside, who will come and do it for us. I must say this. Nobody's coming outside to do that. It is us at the end of the day who should be doing this. And for us to do this, let us have peace. That is the message of peace. Why South Sudan needs peace and why the government is exerting all these efforts. That's why we are having our international relations based on the principle of peace for the people of South Sudan by implementing the revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in the Republic of South Sudan, because all our political parties, 28 of them, have signed it and committed themselves that they were going to implement it in order to bring peace. Yes, we have difficulties now. And that's where I agree with you. Yes, we have difficulties. We are seeing it going slow. That is true. But like all things go slow. There's nothing that can just, there you are. You let it happen as you would wish it to happen. So I think that's why I still appeal that let us continue bringing the rest who are outside, like the comrades you had mentioned, Comrade Pagan, General Pagan, General Paul Malong, General Thomas Cirillo, Emmanuel Ajawin, and all the rest of them. We have to bring them on board. We have succeeded, as I was saying now. We have got our governors in place. The government now is working to form the state governments, which sooner, maybe within next week or so, we're going to governments functioning with the state parliaments. And then the National Assembly members are going also to come on maybe before the end of February. So we are going slow but sure. You know, I had a mathematics teacher who were in class A and the others in class B. And we noticed the class B were doing calculus and we were still doing geometry. So we complained to our teacher, those guys, man, are doing calculus. Why are we behind? He said, no, we are slow but sure. We will reach there. And that is the principle.
Thank you, Honorable. It is true that all of us, we would like to enjoy the dividends of peace. And I was not born at the time of Addis Ababa Agreement in '72, but I did get to enjoy some of those dividends from the Addis Ababa Agreement when we were in Juba here. The resources at the disposal of the regional governments by then were very limited, but they did make some very tangible developments that we can see up to the day. And just to give an example, the Juba Bridge that was built and opened in 1974, just in 2 years of peace. We have the Ministries Complex, which is currently being used by our government, and so many other developments that took place, be it schools, hospitals, and so on. We have had over 15 years of peace since the CPA, since we became an independent country, not an independent federal region of another country. The resources South Sudan had over the past 15 years were plenty. Why have we failed to make sure that we provide our citizens with the infrastructure that is needed Why have we failed to build new schools? Why have we failed to build hospitals? Where have the resources disappeared to? And why
Yeah.
are people not being held accountable?
I agree with you absolutely. But one thing you must know, Madam Angeth, when you talk of 1972, 1972 was a very small government. For example, if you spoke of the Minister of Education in 1972, there were not more than 150 staff there, or you go to the Minister of Presidential Affairs or the Minister of Cabinet Affairs, the numbers were small. You must realize that. The numbers were small, and the number of educated people was equally small. But when you talk of now, when you are talking now about the Republic of South Sudan, after a ferocious war that continued for over 20-something years, from 1983 on, a large number of our children went to schools, by the way, across the board. The numbers increased tremendously. You had a lot of people, you have to build new capacities. The responsibilities also expanding. The responsibilities to be carried out also expanding. And this needed to create capacities that will meet the challenge of the day. And that's why you were doing well when you were in the Ministry of Public Service. You were busy every day trying to identify how many skills people have so that we can increase these skills to meet the demand of the day. But what disturbed all this, you should not miss it, there was instability. There was real instability. And this instability interrupted whatever project that needed to be done. It was not possible to do it. I'll give you an example of the Freedom Bridge when I was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, when we went to open it. This process got interrupted several times. It should have finished a year ago or so. But because of the instability, they had to stop completing. The Japanese had to pull out because there was war going on and the rest. You go to many other projects that you have even within your Ministry of Public Service. There was a lot of interruption that went along. The resources, people talk of resources. Khartoum did not even give us the peace we wanted. You know what happened to us in Hijilij? The delay in fixing up our boundaries and become a cause of conflict and all that. And you know, Umar al-Bashir was saying every day he will just walk up to Juba, knowing that we have just become independent, encouraging a lot of militia groups to come in and cause. So we didn't have peace. And that's what has caused the, and that's why we say actually peace is less expensive than the war. If we have peace now, it will be cheaper and we will have resources and we will be able to do with those resources we have and do the development projects we wanted to do. Imagine, you just think back, the plans that the government had planned, the 5-year government plan which was there. It was an excellent plan. I was a part of that. We know what it was. We had planned the road, 14,000 kilometers of roads to be built in the Republic of South Sudan, with about 6 or so major highways to be constructed. And there was possibility for funds to come in. But sooner or later, what happened? A war broke out between us and Khartoum. Our very survival was being threatened. And that's why the United Nations had to come in 3 days after independence so that they can have their troops here and see that there is no invasion from Sudan to come and then destroy the very agreement we have reached. So all this has an explanation. That's why we say, let us get our calculation right. Let us now say our first thing, let us bring stability. Let us bring stability. And that means let us have peace. And once you have peace, you will be able to do other things. You can talk about democracy. You can talk about electing your representatives. You can talk about good governance. You can sit down to plan what you will do at the state level, what you will do at the national level. You can think of doing the other things. You can sit down and know how much money you have. You can begin to fight things like corruption in the middle of war will no longer be there. All these things are interlinked on a basic platform, a basic table that we need to have. This table is the table of peace. That's why peace is not an initiative of few people. It is for all of us in the government and outside the government. civil society, church organization, and the rest. And that's why you see everybody screaming. That's why you see people like Pope kissing the feet of our political leaders so that there is peace can come in, and then everybody can throw in its bit to see that development takes off. But in 72, we immediately had peace. We were just finishing our universities by that, getting out, and you just finish the next day, and the next day you get a job. You cannot get it today. We just got the job the next day because there was stability, there was peace, and when you finish your college, you are employed by your government because they have time to sit to see where you can go. You can move freely in any part of South Sudan without any difficulties. The little money they have, they didn't have a big budget in 72. Yeah, they never talked of tens of millions. No, they're talking 4 or 5 million pounds or so. Would do a lot of work in the Republic of South Sudan at the time because of the peace that we have. So unless we have peace and end this instability, then we should not dream of developing. We cannot go ahead unless we stop all this unnecessary fighting. The inter-tribal quarrels. Is this a time now you think about your tribe or you think about your nation? Is this a time where you think what religion you have and the other may not be of my religion? Not at all. You see, ethnicity becoming a scourge, becoming a source of death. The cattle rustling, instead of us thinking that let us make an economic value out of our cattle so that we can have milk products and all the rest of it, so that these millions, we are the second, by the way, in the number of cattle that we have on our continent. We are the second, huge amount, 33 million heads of cattle. The United Nations put it that the per head, the highest per head for cattle in the world today is South Sudan. Do you know this? You see, if we were to divide our cattle, in Rwanda, they give each family just one cow, and they will produce the cheese, they will produce the yogurt, they will produce the fresh milk and all the rest of it. So instead of us sitting down, educating our children, instead of running after the cattle, we give them schools and we give them, and we convert them to get a better brand of cattle we have so that we produce more milk. We produce shoe factories with this huge number of cattle and the rest. We produce enough beef for the region. These are things we can do once we have the peace process. So the cattle rustling will just disappear because the people who are running after these cattle will become educated. They can use the cow better in another form, like they do in Europe, like they do in the other parts of the world, where they have a large number of cattle with the benefit. You have seen Ethiopia now producing huge number of chews for this continent because of the cattle they have, you know. So let us identify what our challenge is. And I think we are able to do that. We are able. That's why we sign peace processes. That's why we talk. The government talks to some of our brothers and sisters who are still holding arms and still trying to fight this young nation, again, to cause more blood, which is unnecessary. We have already lost the blood of the most useful people we need. Our ancestors, our fathers and our parents and all the rest. They are heroes and heroines. They have fought hard until we inherited an independent state like today that we have got. It's from their blood. It's from their efforts. If they didn't keep the consciousness that they have, we would not be here today. So, South Sudanese Intellectual Women Forum, let's work for peace, all of us, rather than dwelling on negatives, rather than dwelling on criticizing ourselves without producing positive issues. Let us concentrate, identify, let us identify our weaknesses here and there, and at the same time not to stop doing things which are positive that will take us forward. That is my message.
Thank you. However, there's a part of my question that I have not heard an answer to, and that is in relation to how the resources that are being utilized for these projects are being managed. We have had serious concerns about money disappearing and what is being done to people who do that.
Yes, I agree with you. Financial management. Yes, you remember the government has recently instituted a forum in the Ministry of Finance, which is co-chaired by our Minister of Finance and the British Ambassador to the Republic of South Sudan. they co-chair this financial management committee. This is one way of actually cutting across and preventing like the financial management, which is a scourge in our government. I think that should be. Secondly, also we need good laws. That's why you have a constitution, that's why you have police, that's why you have lawyers, that the culprits who get engaged in corrupt practices must be identified very much through the use of good laws, so that they are identified and punished and held accountable for what they do. It is an art of development. You know, when you reach that stage, when the judicial system becomes up to date, when your police system is capacitated to the maximum, that they can easily identify the culprits, arrest them, and put it like they arrest currency sort of exploiters that move about. You see, it is law still that you need. You need these capacities to be there, so that, and that's why you call yourself a government. You don't just hear from a neighbor that this man has stolen money and you go and hit the neck of that person. No, no, no. There must be law. If there are claims somebody has taken money, let the police do the work. Let him be identified through financial accounting and institutions, which will identify any corrupt measures that are there. The legal system must begin to work. The police must begin to work, the security elements. So these are some of the areas we need to increase the capacity of our people, to strengthen our governance structures, so that they reflect true governance structures with capacities, so that they can carry out the duties they are assigned to look after, like corruption, like stealing of money, killing of other people, all these things. That's why you have revenge killing going all over in our villages now. Because those who kill others, the next day they are seen walking. They are not arrested and put in custody and taken to the court and sentenced. You know, so the governance structures becomes weak in that sense. So you need to strengthen the government structures by giving the proper capacities for you to do that. Otherwise, you'll have a whole house of criminals and thieves moving all around the place, because they know the law is weak. So let us strengthen our judicial system. Let us train our young people to become good lawyers. You see, let us train our police with educated police. All these young men who leave the secondary school can go to police colleges, retrained in different capacities. This is the only way you can fight all these. You can hold people using the law, not being accused using the race or whatever tribe or that, not at all.
Thank you. Thank you. However, I still would like to insist on one thing. If we base our government on merit, wouldn't we have people who would respect the laws that are there and implement to the dot the mandates of the institution? Because here we have
Yes,
a situation where people might lack the capacity and might mismanage those institutions. So if we base our government on meritocracy and we expect whoever holds office is vetted and is the right person to hold that office, isn't that one way of solving the problem? Because
that is
having the
what
law is one
that
thing.
is I agree with you. That's one of the ways. That's why we call there is corruption. And that's why you must fight corruption. You must have standards in which you employ people that they should fulfill. I agree with you, absolutely. And those are some of the weaknesses that we have as a government. And these are the things we need to correct, so that we have the right people in the right places, so that they can conduct the government business in the best way they could, with the full recognition of the citizens of that country. And one of the ways is education. Education is a card. And you come from a family of a teacher, you come from the family of your own father who was an educator. He went into education because he wanted to teach more people to become more responsible. So education is a card, especially of the child girl that must be educated. So that these issues of gender inequality, especially in as far as the female side of the gender is affected, can only be rectified once we do a comprehensive, proper education to all our children, girls and boys at the same time. Adult education you go to. because our country is highly illiterate. And it is so difficult to manage an illiterate society without sustaining a lot of difficulties and challenges in your process as a government. You're going to face that. So education must be in the forefront. Health services, food security, letting our people use their agricultural potential, the land we have. All this can only be done through education. And I think what you raise, I agree with you, they are a concern, but let us have the right solution. That is the answer of the day. You must have the proper solution. It's not just blaming yourself and shedding tears. It won't help you, not at all. Yes. Okay.
I was muted. Okay. In the Revitalized Peace Agreement, it was agreed that 35% of the positions should be allocated to women. We have a policy of affirmative action. And as women, we were pleased to see some of the parties implement the 35% clause by ensuring that they appoint women to ministerial positions, deputy ministers, gubernatorial positions, and so on. However, why is your party lagging behind? There's no woman appointed on SPLM ticket as a governor or a deputy governor. And we're worried. Why are women being marginalized and not being accorded their rights of being appointed to what is rightfully theirs, the 35% that was allocated for them?
Absolutely. 35% is your right. It's the right of women. And you people are there, you shout for it. That's what you do. You ask for your rights. Once you ask your party for your rights, your party will listen to you. But what I can assure you, I know my party is on the road to fulfill that. It's not around the corner, but it's on the road to fulfill the 35%, which is meant for participation in various things. But also, Agnes, you must also embark on another thing. You must also have women with full capacity to take up those challenges seriously. It is not just a question of say we want 35%, but you must also have the adequate personnel trained properly for those places to be fulfilled. That's why you must continually shout for your rights. I can't stop you. That is your absolute right to take 35%. And me as a politician, I will always tell my constituency, I give you my 35%, whether I fulfill it or not, but that's a commitment. But it must come from the beneficiary, and that is yourselves. You ask for your rights and you get your rights. That's what politics is all about. I think this is something which is within the Constitution. It is enshrined in our Constitution, so nobody can take it away from you. So for my party, I think we have raised a lot of concerns in that, and we know our party is working on it. That I know.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We will continue fighting on behalf of the South Sudanese women. I would like to take our conversation back to Vision 2040.
Yes.
In the early years, just before independence, work was done on preparation for drafting the South Sudan Vision 2040. This was supposed to be a long-term plan that would guide us and help us now develop as a country. Most of the strategic plans, the 5-year plans that would be developed would be derived from the Vision 2040. Yes. Why still a draft up to now? Why don't we have a long-term development plan in place as a nation? And the second part of my question is, what flagship projects does our government plan to achieve over the next 2 decades? Because already we have lost 15 years and we are left with only 2 decades as per what was devised in South Sudan Vision 2040, which is still a draft document. So do we have any flagship projects that our government plans to complete? Over to you.
Yes, absolutely. The Vision 2040 is an excellent vision for a young country like the Republic of South Sudan. It is a vision which I think if we go by through spirit and letter, in spirit I mean and letter, we will be able to achieve a lot. In which we are foreseeing a society which is well educated, cultured, democratic, and all that. These are the institutions of the society you would want to build to move in a certain direction, which will enhance raising the standards of living of our people. That is the purpose of it. Where they will have adequate drinking water, where they will have housing, where they will have schools for their children, where they will have health centers, where they will have agricultural projects moving, where the roads will be built, where the trade will boom, where our resources can be exploited for the benefit of everybody. That is what that vision is. It is a process to be built by stages. Now, and that some of the major projects of that thing was actually building highways and roads. Roads. Our late chairman used to say the first priority is roads, the second priority is roads, the third priority is roads, the fourth priority is roads. Because we know in this huge territory of nearly 655 square kilometers of miles of the Republic of, kilometers of land in South Sudan, you need to build roads into this territory. And we have started to do that now with the small piece we have got. You can see now the highway has started already from Juba going to Tarakeka on to Yorul on the way. That's one way. The other road has started now, the one going to Bor and on to. So those projects are beginning. Our Freedom Bridge, they have started just a week ago now, beginning to try to complete the process. So there are major projects which are going on. If you come into Juba itself, you see a lot of housing and offices coming up, being built. That is a good sign. It's a sign of development. It may be small, but it sends a message that if you have more peace, actually you can do more things. We are now beginning to be concerned about our oil revenue, how it is going to be used. We have got the Financial Management Committee, where we have included some of our guarantors and some of our partners who are more experienced in that. So all these processes are going. I think I'm hopeful that if we conclude this peace process much more quickly, I think we can move faster. That's what we will need to do. And I think at the end of the day, still, we need peace. That is the joker. When you have got cards, there is that joker you fit everywhere. Our joker is peace. For you to do all these things, and then for you to do all these things, there must be peace. There's no any other way.
Thank you.
You are to have trade, you need the roads. If you produce a lot of fish, in Jonglei, for example, which we can feed the rest of South Sudan, we need to have our steamers moving on the Nile. We need to have our roads coming up. If we have crops in a wheel area, we rice in a wheel area, we need our highway to open. If we want our oil to move faster, we need our roads to better. And on up to the Sudan, when we have to have some of these products, we are not going to consume them alone. They're too much for us. If we begin really to produce them, we will sell it to our neighbors, to our East African community partners. They will be getting all that we have. So the future is for us. Let's have peace. And I would want the South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum to take that message very, very seriously. Let us work for peace, because at the end of the day, it is the women who are our mothers, they are our wives, they are our girlfriends, they are our aunties, they are our grandmothers, they produce the people you call you call citizens. They are by women. And so the role of women is crucial for us to realize that. They carry our children 9 months of the whole year in their stomach and produce who would be the citizens of this country, who would be the presidents of this country. It's still women who are producing it, you see. So your role is strategic, it's particular, it's natural, it's enshrined through creation. It's not a man's work. No, not at all. It's Almighty's work. That's how He did for this process to continue. So let us be together, women and men, old and young, in the Republic of South Sudan, working side by side, rather than falling into ethnicities, into tribes, into the things that do not earn anybody anything. What do you gain by using ethnicity as a source of running your country? It cannot be. It can't be, and it hasn't happened anywhere in the world. It has failed miserably. You know, those countries where tribalism has taken bite, like in Nigeria and the rest, they are abandoning it now. It doesn't work. In Liberia, in Sierra Leone, they tried it everywhere. In Mozambique, all these places, it doesn't help. In South Africa, it couldn't work. Ethnicity was a complete failure. Racialism was a complete failure. So let us, we in South Sudan, let us learn over our shoulders and really begin to do things that we think will benefit us. Because the Almighty has given us a wonderful country, the Republic of South Sudan. It is such a beautiful country, you cannot get anywhere now.
Thank you. I would like to steer our conversation now to diplomacy and foreign relations. You were once a National Minister of Foreign Affairs and an advisor to the President. Unfortunately, our image internationally has been really dismal. As a country, we are labeled as having no clear foreign policy and low effectiveness of our diplomatic missions. What can be done to improve our image internationally?
You know, when we were a liberation struggle, let me remind you, we started our foreign policy as a non-state actor when we were not yet a state. And we had a brilliant foreign relations to the extent that we actually completely paralyzed the policies of the Republic of Sudan in Khartoum because of the tact we used during the liberation struggle to get the support, to get the financing, to get the hardware, to conduct our war, get a lot of support, a lot of humanitarian. That was a wonderful foreign policy that we conducted, and we succeeded. That's how we got this country. Now, and you know, during that time, also the liberation struggle was not sleeping. For your information, we were training our diplomats in the most knowledge, the most well-known diplomatic colleges of Europe. The same colleges, the ambassadors in Europe come here, we have trained our diplomats in those colleges. So there is no shortage that we didn't have people who have been properly trained as ambassadors. Our people don't pay attention. They don't even try to think back how these people were trained in the first place. When we established regional cooperation was established with a strategy that one day the people of South Sudan might vote for an independent state. So let us prepare our diplomats. And we train our diplomats everywhere. We train them in South Africa, we train them in Holland, we train them in Britain, we train them in Egypt, we train them in Kenya, we train them in Uganda, all these places, in Ethiopia. We had people trained. So our foreign policy has never been wrong. But as you know, what is the cornerstone of a foreign policy after all? The cornerstone of a foreign policy is your national interest, is to build your national interest. And your national interest, you see, is reflected by what happens inside your country. Now, our foreign policy now looks bad, not because we don't have well-trained diplomats or so, not at all. It's because we are engaged in a conflict, in a war, and therefore it becomes reflected outside. Oh, they are killing their people, they are raping their women, they are doing this, and that becomes reflected. So in fact, what you hear outside is what they see is happening inside the country. And that goes back to the heart of the issues that our country is facing today. Conflicts, fighting, interracial, intertribal, and all the rest. And these things become reflected. Not that we have a failed foreign policy, not at all. We have the people who are able to do it, people who have been well trained in known colleges of diplomacy and international relations. There's nowhere we have not sent our people to be trained. Japan, name it, in places like in China, we train in Australia, in all these places, we send our diplomats that are completely able to conduct the business of diplomacy as it should be. But as long as we don't change our internal politics, because foreign relations is a reflection of our internal policies. That's why you are hearing a lot of bad things about the Republic of South Sudan today. When you get a friend talking to you, oh, we heard that you people are eating yourselves, that they eat human beings. We know in the history of cannibalism in Africa, let me tell you this. There is no any case of reported cannibalism among the Nilotics. It doesn't happen. And sometimes you find people writing that people were just cutting the meat to be forced on somebody. These are policies of negative propaganda against a particular system of government that is going on in that places. So it is our internal mechanics that has gone wrong, that is being reflected outside by what you call the foreign policy, that we have lost our friends are complaining that we are corrupt, the most corrupt country in the world. Now, and when you see where are these resources of people who are corrupt, well, yes, the few of us are doing that, but it is not really, if you see the standard of the people where they are, it is just the war. It is that the war situation that has forced some of these things to happen in the whole process. So the foreign policy, I have it here in our constitution. It's very, very clear in this book. If you look at it, you should have it. The Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan, and you look at what its foreign policy is one of the most wonderful documents you can ever get. It is one of the most wonderful documents you can ever get. There's the foreign policy plans. They are put down, done by institutions, known institutions of foreign policy and international relations, based on those principles that we have adopted. Who is that country that doesn't want to have a good relations with the neighbors? Who is that country that does not want to have good trading relations with others? Who is that country that does not want to have solidarity with some of the countries? It is enshrined in the policies of the country itself for it to be recognized as a member of the United Nations. If you imagine, we were the first country in the whole world today that became a member of UN in 3 days. No country has done that. But South Sudan did it in 2011. In 3 days, South Sudan became a recognized member of the United Nations. It hasn't happened to so many countries. It takes them a long time. And you remember what we were doing about that before we joined the UN. We had workshops here. We had workshops here in Juba. We invited Switzerland to come here. I was a foreign minister at the time. We invited Switzerland to tell us what is good by not becoming a member of the UN, because we were saying, why don't we consider us not becoming members of the UN? And we invited Switzerland because Switzerland was not a member of the UN at the time. So they came and lectured to us what disadvantages they get, what advantages they get. So we didn't just become a member of UN just simply because it happened by itself. No, it was studied and planned properly, and it was calculated. It was not by accident. We saw that Khartoum was becoming hostile. There were a lot of rumors saying that if the South votes for independence, then Khartoum will invade the Republic of South Sudan as soon as these people. This was the assessment of even the international partners. But we moved. The way we moved, we immediately talked to the United Nations. We told them that now UNMISS it's only existed in Khartoum by that time. So we decided that as soon as we become independent, we want United Nations to be present here. It was out of calculation that Khartoum might invade us, and we wanted a witness to be present during that time. That's how UNMISS immediately became South Sudan United Nations mission in South Sudan was established. Because it was done because there was suspicion when Khartoum was bombing Bantu, they were bombing other places, and people thought that they were going to invade the Republic because they are not happy about the independence referendum that the people of South Sudan had voted referendum. We've done a lot of international politics in those areas. They didn't just happen like that. They were planned for, and that's how we became the members of the United Nations, welcomed by all the nations, without a single opposition, except the PLO, this fellow who was not happy with the South breaking away from an Arab country like the Sudan. These are some of the issues. We became members of the African Union. We were warmly welcomed. We have been warmly welcomed in IGAD. We were members of AGOA, although suddenly we lost our seat in AGOA because you women did not do your homework. You didn't do your homework because AGOA, when I traveled to Nairobi as an invited country for AGOA membership, and we urge our women that the AGOA trading activities are mainly connected with the women activities, which is reflected in all that. We lost that now. I don't see you. What are you doing? This is my question to you. What are you doing as South Sudanese Intellectual Women Forum about our seat being withdrawn by the United States government as members of AGOA? Have you taken any steps in that?
Thank
There
you.
So,
Thank you.
So our policies are there. I mean, our policies are there. The personnel are there. You cannot say that that there are people well trained, people who have capacity. People like you saw how you ran the public service. Can you say there was no capacity in public service? Can you say that? No, you can't. The same thing in foreign affairs. There are well-trained ambassadors. They just didn't get there because they were relatives of this and that. No, some of them were well-trained with a lot of knowledge. Send them to European colleges of foreign policy, where they graduated very nicely. And anyway, you can get to. And in fact, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was one of the ministries that did not run short. That did not run short at all of diplomats to have them. Because we had trained some in Khartoum. We inherited some who were even trained by Khartoum. We took them back all into our regional cooperation at the time, and later on became the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And then we were developing. When Comrade Nyal was the first Minister of Regional Cooperation, and then he left, then I was brought from Khartoum, and I took over from him. We continued building the Minister of Regional Cooperation with the hindsight that at the end of the day, South will definitely vote an independent state. Should they do that, all we will need the next morning is to change the board of regional cooperation and put it as foreign affairs, because we have already personnel who have been prepared for it, who have been trained for it. And so it won't take us, it will not be a big deal like in the other ministries of agriculture, education, and all that. No, we were prepared with our staff that we're going to take over. And then it did happen. And in the beginning, we had wonderful relations during the interim period. We actually ran the day. We had influences at the United Nations. We had influences at places, especially from 2011, when we became independent. Our influence was felt throughout, and we continue to do that. It is only when our internal politics went wrong into fighting and killing, that's where our foreign policy name was damaged. And that's where we need to start now to correct it.
Thank you. Thank you. In the interest of time, I would like to shift our discussion to something else, and that is our membership of international organization. At the dawn of independence, South Sudan decided to join many international and regional organizations like the UN, the ILO, IGAD, the EAC, and many others. Unfortunately, 10 years later, we are now feeling the financial implications of joining these bodies, and it is started to sink in that we are now indebted to almost each and every one of them. For example, when you look at the East African community, we owe them over 27 million. For the AU, it was about 9 million, and it was recently cleared, and so on. Almost every organization that we have joined, we have defaulted in meeting our membership fees. So my question is, was it really worth it to join all these bodies without first studying the benefits and the possible repercussions as shown by these financial debts that our country is currently unable to pay? What are the benefits for us? And as somebody who works with an international organization, we are underrepresented in almost every institution internationally. So what can we do to make sure that when we are part of these organizations, our qualified South Sudanese are able to be part and parcel of these institutions so that our quota is also filled up? So it's a twofold question, the financial implication as well as representation of our
Yes,
people in these
I,
bodies.
I see your point. First of all, we are not an island by ourselves. If you see South Sudan, and if you see South Sudan is surrounded by over 7 countries. The territory of the Republic of South Sudan, whether from the west, from Central Africa, DRC to Uganda to Ethiopia, and you go on to Sudan, we are surrounded. We are in the heartland of the region. That's why it was difficult for us not to become the members, for example, of IGAD. We had to, because our position demands it. Our position where we are in demands it. The same thing, it was difficult for us not to become a part of the East African community, because there are many advantages that are there. Our nation now is a nascent nation in the building. And we thought that, which is not true to say that we joined this organization without studying, not at all. The researches were made in the ministry. They made the researches, they saw the advantages, the disadvantages, and what could we gain and what would be our difficulties. All this was done in the place before actually any application was forwarded. And we had the studies, the membership of the Commonwealth. We had a research to the extent that we were invited in Australia as observers of the Commonwealth, but we did not complete our membership because there were certain things we wanted to put correctly before we become the members of the Commonwealth of Nations. So all these participation in various organizations are studied. They are not just done automatically. Now, when you look at South Sudan as a future resource territory in the region of East Africa, it has got enormous natural resources, whether these are agricultural resources, whether these are mineral resources, whether these are wildlife resources, whether these are cattle heading and all the rest of it, enormous, with a population of, say, about 12 million people. We foresee the future of the Republic of South Sudan. When these resources become properly exploited, it will need a bigger market. It will need a bigger market to sell its resources, because the citizens will not be able to consume how much things they have. They will need a market. And that justified actually becoming a part of the 200 million of the East African community. Because East African community, these 6 nations together, they make a huge population of 200 million, so that in the future, not far from now, once the South begin to exploit its resources, it will have an easy market where they will be able to sell what they have. At the present moment, we are not buying anything from anybody except some few things that we were buying. And that's why our currency in the beginning was very, very strong before it got destroyed to be what it is today. So really the membership of an organization is built after a strong research. Now, membership fees. The membership fees just became a problem after we started our civil war in this country. Because before the war, we were paying all these things without any problems. They were being paid. But the difficulty arose as soon as the issue of instability and political instability started inside the Republic of South Sudan. And it is understood. And we are not the first member of the African Union to experience such instability. You have got Sudan. During our time, Sudan was not able to pay their fees. At the time I was a foreign minister at the African Union coming there, they had problems, not because they didn't have the money, but because they had a lot of internal problems that they faced. We have countries like Central African Republic that are not able to pay any fees because of war. You have got countries like Liberia at the time, like Sierra Leone, you can go on, where Muammar Gaddafi used to pay for those countries who have got conflicts, and Gaddafi used to come in and pay their bills at whatever process. So the area of failure not paying the bills is because of the internal difficulties, economic as well as war difficulties. South Sudan started to experience it. So as soon as we will begin to correct our internal problems and become steady, we will be able to pay that, because we are paid before. It is not the first time that we have been not paid. We have been paying quite handsomely. Our commitments were going well. I know that because I've been in that ministry and have been committed to payment of some of those bills that we have. Some of those bills are very small. How much do you have to pay? Some $20,000, $30,000? Is that an amount of money that can demand any sort of a thing? So it is the internal conflicts that we have that has reduced, and the economic difficulties these days that have come up that has made it the failure of bills. But it is a temporary handicap, which I think the government can sit down and correct. Like you rightly say now, they have paid off the AU bill. That has been paid off. They have already paid off a part of the East African bill. The United Nations is not a big bill. I think it's 20,000 or something of that kind, which is to be paid. So I'm sure these non-failure of difficulties, not that the country cannot afford them, is simply because the country was in economic difficulties, including war difficulties, that made it difficult to upkeep its commitment to the organization of which it is a member. But by all means, membership of this organization is useful for your country. You have got United, as a member of UN now, we have a lot of UN agencies who are here helping. We couldn't be here if you are not a member of that organization. The same thing with African Union. We have got the United Nations peacekeeping forces in this country because of our membership. We have got the East African community assisting us in our foreign policy, in our isolation, in our sanctions. Without the members of the East African community to argue our case, to get out of all those difficulties, they will not do it unless because they know we are our members. They equally understand that we have internal difficulties, that when you grow inside the East African community, one day you'll be able to correct and rectify the difficulties you have. So we should begin to look at those things with proper analysis of why these things are happening and the reasons for it. And I think the government is giving those reasons why they have not paid their bill last for the African Union. They understood it because of this terrible war we are in. We had a terrible war with the Sudan before, you remember, and our oil was not able to go to the sea because it was stopped. And so we sustained a lot of financial difficulties came up. But that was a temporary measure. It will have to be corrected at the end of the day. So I think let us keep our membership of those organizations, but let us go down to do our housekeeping processes correct. We do it correct by doing the right things at home. Once we begin to do the right things at home, you will be able to help the neighbor. That's natural. You can, if your house is stable and your neighbor is suffering, you help them. But if your house is not in order, you cannot even give them salt. Again, you can't even help them with salt if your house is in turmoil, in disorder. And so those are some of the things that I think we need to share ideas. I'm glad you asked these questions, frankly speaking. I appreciate it very much. And I think these are issues that our politicians should be able to manage and should be able to answer and explain to our people so that our people can understand why we are having these difficulties and not just blame it on the government, not at all. Because we are a country and we should preserve our national interest by all means.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I would like us to move to the next question, which is a very important question that has been...
Another time, this is a book, Annette. We are talking about a book.
Okay. Yeah, so I will keep my questions very brief so that at least we can address some of the concerns that are coming up from our audiences. I would like to take questions from the audiences, but I have one very important question that I would like to pose, and that has to do with our relations with our neighbors. Recently, public opinion consistently suggests that South Sudan is developing close ties with Egypt to the detriment of our historical relations with Ethiopia. We know Ethiopia stood by us throughout the liberation struggle, and even beyond that, up to today, they continue to support us through the two last peace agreements that were signed. So what is your response to this sentiment that is being expressed by our people that we seem to be drifting away from our friends and making new friends?
I think it is an underestimation completely, because we must, by all means, know that our relations with these countries is based on our national interest as South Sudan. In the first place, let us take that. First of all, as you rightly said it, with Ethiopia, we have been having relations for centuries, since the time of Haile Selassie, who helped so much to bring the Addis Ababa peace agreement, and then the time of Haile Mariam, the time of Mengistu Haile Mariam, who assisted us in our war against Khartoum very, very effectively. And then comes Malik Zenawi. Malik Zenawi's government also helped us, although we had few differences here, we reconnected and our relationship very much improved. Come now, Haile Mariam, the Prime Minister. Haile Mariam was having very good relations with the Republic of South Sudan. And at the present moment, we have got the present government of Ahmed, which is also having relations. So we have had good relations with Ethiopia. We have also had good relations with Egypt, you must know. You know, most of our educational system, especially higher education, it was Egypt educating most of our university students, because we didn't have University of Juba or University of Bahr el Ghazal. Only Khartoum, we used to take a very small number of brilliant students, 20, 30 a year. But Egypt was able to do that. You must know also Egypt has got political historical relations in South Sudan. As I told you, in 1821, Muhammad Ali came in here, right up to Gondokoro, right up here in Juba, where he came over, and our people resisted all that period from 1821 to the coming in of General Charles Gordon in 1875 and Sir Samuel Baker in 1869. They all fought hard the issue of slavery until 1885, when General Charles Gordon was killed, and then came 1898 by Lord Kitchener, where South Sudan became effectively a part of the Sudan, ending up in the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. But most of the years before that, South Sudan was looked upon as a part of Greater East Africa. That's what it was. And people were calculating whether South Sudan should become a part of East Africa, of Kenya and Uganda, or become an independent state. That argument continued until 1940s, 1947 or so. But because of the pressure of Egypt, because Egypt was known as the king of Egypt and Sudan, as you know, King Farouk of Egypt was king of Egypt and Sudan. And when South Sudan became next to Sudan, it became a part of Egyptian influence. So the relationships, I can tell you, with these two countries has also been based in our own national interest, without antagonizing any of them. And that is a good policy. We are too weak to make enemies with anybody. We cannot fight Egypt, we cannot fight Ethiopia. We know the role each of them has done for us in our struggle of independence and that. So the recent policies are policies of trade. These are policies of trade, and trade these days, and it goes beyond borders. You see, Egypt is interested in South Sudan because of the issue of the water of the Nile. We are members of the Nile Basin. There are 12 countries, I think, or 13 of them, who are on the Nile. And South Sudan has got a card to try and bring peace between Khartoum, Egypt, and Ethiopia. They have this part they have formed now, these three countries. And South Sudan, you see, becomes a mediator, somebody who can bring, if there is problem between Egypt and Ethiopia, South Sudan is qualified to come in and try and make some friendship and make some repairs, if we can be allowed to do so. The same thing, Khartoum and Ethiopia, like now, Khartoum has got problems with Ethiopia. That's why President Salva Kiir Mayardit and our government was thinking how we can play a role in order to bring peace between Ethiopia and the Sudan. Therefore, our role in the region is a good card. It's a card of friendliness with everybody. We are friends to everybody and an enemy of none. We are not enemy of anybody of these countries around us. Up to today, I must consider us very lucky. We have not gone to war with anybody, except with Umar al-Bashir. That is the only person we went to war with. But then you'll not quote Kenya or Ethiopia or Uganda or DRC or Central Africa. We have never been at war with one of these neighbors, except the Sudan during the time of Omar al-Bashir. But when we had that war, it's because of the Mu'tamar al-Watani at the time. That has caused the process. So I think our policies within the region are healthy. We are a friend to all, and we would want to see peace exist in this region of ours. This is our national interest. We want peace, so we can play the role of a good, peaceful person in the region. So I don't think we have moved any closer to anybody, but I think we are keeping the friendship of all so that we can contain peace in our region.
Thank you. Thank you. The last question I would like to ask, because before I give you an opportunity to make some concluding remarks, is in relation to the diaspora. As I speak now, we have over 246 people who are watching this show, and I'm sure hundreds more would watch it later on. South Sudan has a huge population in countries like the US, Canada, UK, and so on. And do we really have a diaspora engagement policy? Is there a special diaspora desk established in any office within our government? This is one question. The second part of my question, because I don't have any more questions to ask, is how can we tap into this valuable resource to try and keep them engaged effectively in our national affairs? What policies can we put in place to encourage them to return home and then invest in the development of our country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you asked this question about our diaspora, because our diaspora are a product of the struggle. These are young people who contributed their lives at an earlier age to see that South Sudan becomes independent, and they actually went into exile not because they did not love South Sudan. They went into exile so that they can earn more skills and more education. And I remember Chairman Garang at the time said this would be a great asset to us in the future. That these young people now who have gone to Australia, to Britain, to America, to Europe, to Canada, to all these in Central Africa, in Kenya and other places, this is our great hope that these people will be a great, great, great asset. And I still believe in that in the Republic of South Sudan. Now, I want to give them an example. I hope the diaspora are listening to this. I would like our diaspora to know one thing, that this country called the Republic of South Sudan is their country. We, in our constitution, we made sure that there were going to be a lot of our people who are going to other countries and will gain citizenship in those countries. So what did we do in our constitution here at home? We made it very clear, all those citizens of ours who will become citizens in other countries, we have no quarrel with it. You can still come and get your citizenship here in the Republic of South Sudan, because we know you will not be the first diaspora in history. I'll give you an example, Angel. Look at Israel. Israel, there are more Jews in New York than there are in Israel. And all those Jews in New York, there is no single day they forget about Israel. They will influence the government, the senators, and everybody to do something positive about Israel, because that is their original home. So I want our diaspora, wherever they are, whether you are in Australia, whether you are in Britain, whether you are in the United States or Canada or Kenya or Uganda or South Africa or Ethiopia or in Egypt or everywhere, you must always remember that your home is the Republic of South Sudan. That's why some of our relatives now we are losing, dying in Europe or America and Australia, we still bring their bodies back home here and bury them, because the soil of your land lies lightest on your bones. So this is their country. So my respect and contribution, and that is the same thing with our government, the same thing with our president. We value the diaspora, that they are citizens of this country and they have a role to play. My advice to them is that you don't become too critical for your country. There are things you can correct by dealing with your citizens in the country to correct them. But you don't sell out your country altogether. You don't do that, because the country is the home of your ancestors. It's the home of your people. If there are things which are not going well, you can correct them. So I believe the role diaspora can do is still great. I remember when I was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I had initiated a program with one of the banks here, Kenyan banks here in Juba. We had gone to the level that this Kenyan bank was going to open up accounts for our diaspora where they can keep the hard currency account in them. And when they keep the hard currency account here, they can now begin to buy land inside South Sudan here, where they can build their houses, where they can do other things. This was the way, and I had agreed with that with that bank. They had actually were prepared that they can open their accounts and they can even go on to giving mortgages as long as their accounts were going to be a hard currency account. So there are many things we as a government can do with our diaspora. We had also, when we visited United States and we went to to the Senate, to visit the senators at the Congress, and we told them that we need our students who have finished here and trained, please, why don't you send them to South Sudan to assist in teaching, to assist in doing projects, and you cancel the school debts. There are a few came, the American government agreed, and a few of them came. I remember Professor Elias Nyamalel had to come on that assignment to come and do a project here while they can relieve some of the loans back to the government. So we were doing a lot of things during our time. Now it is the war that has interrupted a lot of these things. And I think we can now begin to revive these things with our diaspora. However angry they are sometimes about what is happening here in the country. You don't throw up your hands about your country. You don't do that. You come in and be a part of it and begin to see how you can help to put things back in this wonderful, beautiful country called the Republic of South Sudan. So my advice is, first of all, we would be very happy to resume those activities. That is development activities once again. I know some of them are educating their cousins and brothers and so in the neighboring countries. That was a good thing to do. They were paying the fees there for them, and these people got educated, they finished their degrees now. That's another way they can help. You can help educate some of your relatives, young people. You can train them in Kenya by paying their fees because the government is not able to pay anything for them. That's another way you can help. You can now begin to think of projects that they should do in their own villages here in South Sudan. Not talking about Juba, Malakal, or Wow. I want in their villages. They go to their districts, start a small school there. And some have already done it. I've seen that in Jonglei. I like the schools some of the diaspora built there. That was great. That is a contribution. And also you have to help your country. If your country is being sort of attacked left and right by other foreigners, it is your duty to protect your country. Blame your country that they've done a mistake, but go out and tell those people, no, that is not the solution. We can correct that thing by adopting a particular policy that can, in fact, help to retrieve the issues. So the role of diaspora is paramount. I want them to behave like Jews. They never forgot Israel. So my diaspora, please don't forget South Sudan. It is your home. It's the home of your ancestors. And if things are not proper, come in and we work together to put these things correct. Because there is nothing that goes bad for ages. It doesn't happen that way. So your education, you are a light in the middle of so many illiterate people. And that light of education you have, you can benefit your village here in South Sudan. You can benefit your small village, your small town. You can do a lot of wonderful things. Advise agricultural projects, fisheries, what have you. You can create dairy farms. Why not? You can do it. Crossbreeding and all that. You have all that knowledge. Why don't you come and use it and make use of that? Rather than us talking about politics, who is to be elected, who will be the president, who is going to be the minister, who is going to be this and that. No, let's get in, and that will develop even the private sector. United States is powerful because of the private sector. Not everybody works with the American establishment. Not everybody works at the White House. No, not in the government system. A lot of people get jobs from the private companies that are developed as a result of development from good policies that the investment can come into a country like South Sudan with enormous resources that can now open up companies and people can get jobs, not necessarily working for the government of the Republic of South Sudan. This is the outlook we should all have. And that is the benefit of our education. Our education, it makes us think broadly, not selfishly to yourself or to your brother or your relative or to your tribe, of this tribe. I can't imagine an educated person priding himself because of a tribe. It's embarrassing. You are a nationalist. You are a South Sudanese. You want to build a country called South Sudan in the middle of Africa that can become a limelight, a strong nation that all of us can be proud of. These are the ideas our diaspora should adopt. And I'm glad I'm talking to some of your friends in the diaspora today. No, I talk a little bit harsh, but I hope one day I'll be able to interact with them so that we can carry these good policies forward and see what their role, especially in development, at the village levels, can go faster than you can ever imagine. And I think they should do that now, not tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Barnaba, for that eloquent word directed at members of our diaspora. I have gone over our allotted time, but I would still like to give you an opportunity to make some concluding remarks. So over to you for maybe 2 minutes to give us words of advice. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much, Madame Ahmed Dut. I thank you a lot for the depth of the wonderful questions that you have asked me today. It was mesmerizing and amazing, the type of questions that you asked that are relevant to our country. I'm also very, very, very thankful so much to Aisha, who persuaded me I should become a part of this. I also thank her very much for inviting me to participate with the people of South Sudan, wherever they are, especially our women, especially South Sudanese Intellectual Women Forum, an organization I'm really very, very proud of. There is no way we can develop if our women are not educated. It is only when our mothers, our wives and sisters are educated, that is the day South Sudan will move forward in a robust manner, progressing, raising the living standard of our people. And I think this forum is a useful forum. I hope I have contributed in a little way what I can say about some of these issues, of which I have more to say. I haven't finished. I had the patience. I didn't want to stop you, Ahmed, in asking your question because you would accuse me, are you becoming impatient? So I have been patient, dragging along in order to meet your questions as you ask them adequately, because they were also encouraging questions and very serious in tone and nature and required answers to it. There's no way I could not reply and answer some of these questions. My last message to them is that South Sudan has a future. South Sudan has a future. As long as its sons and daughters are there, getting enlightened, getting educated, I think we will move forward. And that is the hope. The hope we have for our country is a great hope, and we should keep it up. We should keep up that hope, because that's why we fought, and that's why our ancestors, our heroes and our heroines fought for this country so that we become an independent. It is that hope. It is that hope that we can make it. And I'm sure you we can make it. No ways. I think we can make it despite our differences, which are ethnic, which are religious, which are tribal, which are racial. And these, to me, which sometimes are selfish in nature, that somebody loses a position as a minister or so, or is not identified with this and that, and then he goes to war, goes to the bush, raise an army, because our people are not enlightened, are not educated. No, we should stop that. Let us build our country, be a country of the educated, of a democratic nature, that great prides and protects its dignity and its freedom, and actually brings up its children for a good future, a society that cares for the next generation to come, not a generation that forgets the future. These are the things we should, our Vision 2040 should not die. It should be built progressively as we go along. So no despair, we are hopeful that South Sudan will get out of the difficulties. And I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to give my views on matters of great importance that you have asked.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Barnaba Marial, for sharing your valuable time with us this evening. We appreciate your responses to our answers. And I believe we have not exhausted all the questions that we would have loved to ask you, but time is not in our favor. I'm already 10 minutes over our allotted time for the interview. But we hope that in the future we would still have another opportunity to interact with you and also to learn some more on what you're doing in the peace front, the diplomatic front, as well as foreign relations issues. To our audiences, I thank you very much for the interest you have shown to be part of this program. My apologies for not giving you a chance or asking questions on your behalf, because I had a lot of questions of my own to ask and I could not keep track of the questions being asked by our audiences. So thank you very much for being part of our show this evening. We look forward to hosting more policymakers who would come on this show and who we can candidly ask questions and will candidly answer us also. The team working in the background, I thank you all for the good work that you have been doing and for resolving the technological glitches that we had in the beginning. We are grateful for your continuous support. So with this, we have come to the end of our show, and I would like to thank all our audiences around the world for tuning in, and we look forward to having you tune in to our next show. So from all of us here at South Sudan Women Intellectuals Forum, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to all of you. Thank you very much.
Good night. Thank you.